Okay, so we're going to unwrap this cylinder, which I'm going to name. Remember to name your assets. Okay, so instead of when we've added unwrap UVW, instead of looking down and picking either one of these projection options, so with a banana it being semi-cylindrical, you probably think that this one might work. It would do an okay job, but it wouldn't do it perfectly. And there's one small trick that I haven't yet shown you about unwrapping that I think might help it make more sense to you. So if I open up the UV editor, this is my banana at the moment. You can see it's basically unwrapped it like a cylinder. So it's just flat. Yours will probably look very similar if you use a cylinder to start with. And some of you, I think, have done this by accident, and then you've clicked on here, and you ended up with this weird checker thing come up. So what that is it's telling you, it's a visual way using grids and numbers and letters to tell you where the texture is stretching and where it's fitting well, if you can read it well, and the squares are roughly square. These are a little bit rectangular. And where it's sort of pinching and where it's got problems, right? So it's just a visual representation of that. It shows you that on every model that you have. Before, only in the latest version of 3D Studio Max, you had this one that is sort of multicolored with all the letters and numbers on. The original one was this checker pattern, which if you look at any sort of game development blogs from game studios, at some point you'll probably see someone's screen with this checker pattern on it. And you can see a little more clearly on this one where we've got stretching in the texture. So what that means is if this was it wasn't a banana, it was a can of soup or something, right? And you were putting the label of Heinz on it. If the label and the word Heinz went across this section here, then you would get stretching in the wording, right? So it wouldn't look right. It'd be terrible texturing. So the reason why we unwrap things is to try and get them to, as close as possible, have these squares be square. And that means that when we texture stuff in Photoshop, it's going to look fine when it goes onto the asset. So with a kind of slightly odd shape like a banana or a hand or a face or anything other than there's something that's just flat or cylindrical, you have to use different techniques to unwrap them. And the one we're going to use here is called peel. So we have a section here called peel. And just before I go in there and start unwrapping and putting in the areas where I want this banana to split open, I'm going to come down just to this section here that says configure. Now, you can all see these green lines, right, that are running around the asset at the moment. So those lines are where 3D Studio Max itself, whenever it tries to unwrap something, as soon as you click unwrap as a modifier, 3D Studio Max will attempt to unwrap the asset itself, okay? And it shows you where it's attempted to split it, so where it's put the little marks to be able to unfold something by highlighting it with these green edges. 99% of the time, 3D Studio Max does a bad job of it. So ignore the green lines that are on there. And to make that job even easier, to ignore them, where it says map seams here under the display panel, if you tick map seams, it gets rid of it. Okay, so we're not being distracted by those at all. Now what we're going to do is come back up to where we've got peel, and I'm going to click on peel mode, and then looking at the asset, I can see it's already straight away giving me a lot more sort of square shapes, right, which is good. But it hasn't told me where it split it. I can tell it split it here just because of the way they're not lining up, right? So I want to put my own split in. I want to tell it where I want it to cut the object in half. So to do that, under the peel section, I've got this seams option here, point to point. And what I can do is say I want to start here, and I want to split from that point all the way down the middle of the front of the banana. And then at this bottom section here, I'm going to go around the bottom. Whoa, make sure it goes all the way around. I'm not going to finish off this bit here, otherwise this section will pop off on its own. It'll be a separate little piece. Okay, so I'm going to right click. Now that I've done that one little bit, I'm going to just click this one here to reset it, to tell me to put it back to where I put the splits in. Okay, so notice the bit that was over here, undo. You see this bit here that was split off. That was where 3D Studio Max was trying to split it. I've put my own seam in there now. So if I click on reset, it's splitting it where I've told it to. Now I can go back up to the top, and I'm going to split around the top a bit as well. So I'm going to come round. You can see as I'm doing it, notice here, every single piece that I cut off, there, then there, and there, it's like taking a pair of scissors to that part of the banana, and that top section is just coming off. It's coming off as a separate piece. If I go all the way around to one, if I do the final one, it will take it off as a separate chunk. I don't want that. I want it to still have it part of the banana. So I'm going to stop at this last piece here. Okay. That now, there are perfect squares running around the whole of the banana, and it's perfectly unwrapped. It's ready for you to take this into Photoshop and start texturing. Okay, so it's a much easier way of splitting something open than the traditional way of flat playing on it or whatever. Okay. Once you've got to that stage, so just reposition this. If you want to kind of move it around and place it somewhere, then you can. Make sure you turn peel mode off when you move things around. If you don't, if that's still on, it will mess up. Trust me, just don't do it. So we can place this. Obviously, the whole purpose of this box here, that is whatever size we tell it to. So whether it's 1024, 2048, etc. Texture sizes, remember. The more that the banana takes up in terms of space means the higher density of pixels we can get on that banana, which means more detail we can put on it. Okay, so make it fill this square as much as possible. But what you don't want to be doing is starting to stretch it and doing anything like this, because then you're going to get non-square faces on it. Okay, so if you are going to scale it at all, then scale it uniformly. So you hold down, I think it's Control, and it will scale in all axes at the same time. When you're happy and you've placed it where you want it, go up to Tools. You know this bit, I think, already. Render UV template. Here, we want to tell it 1024 is quite small. It'd be fine if you're a mobile game, because obviously you're on a mobile, assets going to be quite small anyway, so you can have a smaller texture because you're never going to get that close to them. But for this purpose, we're just going to push it up to 2K, so 2048. I'm not interested in the green seam, so I can turn that off. And then here's my render output. Where do I want to throw the final template? So click in here, and I just started doing one earlier. I'll overwrite that. So banana template.jpg. Save type as in here. Make sure that's JPEG. Save. Yes. And then render. It's just asking me if it wants to overwrite the one I did before. So yes. There we go, done. I can then take that into Photoshop. I'm going to stop there. Peel, unwrap your bananas, please.